Give us the word right now. I know John Lee, the chief executive, has not officially announced it yet. He is leaning towards scrapping the hotel quarantine for arrivals. But is this a certainty?
Government has made a decision to scrap the hotel quarantine policy to make it 3+4 to 0+7. The two administrative hurdles they are now trying to overcome is if they also, which they will, scrap the pre-board PCR test, okay, that means a lot more tourists and business travelers will come to Hong Kong with a 0+7. That would mean that upon landing, there'll be a lot more cases that could be found positive. Then they have to go into the isolation hotel. Now, currently we have quarantine hotels. We have quite a few, many of them. But can they all be turned into isolation hotels for those that are found tested positive? That is something that they are now looking at. Of course, the lab capacity at the airport is also important, because what they will do is to do a rapid test and a PCR test on all the arrivals. And if you're tested negative on the rapid test, you're allowed to leave the airport. But then they have to provide the PCR test result within 2-3 hours. Otherwise, the whole thing falls apart, because if it comes 24 hours later, then for those that are tested positive, they're already in the community. So they have to make that happen within, 2, 3, or 4 hours. So they have to crank up the lab capacity. So currently, the two things that are remaining are the isolation hotel capacity and the lab capacity at the airport for a short turnaround. When those are resolved, they can announce it. And I expect that they can announce it as early as next week to be effective by mid of October.
Tell me more about the logistics at the airport. Right now, you do take a PCR test. You can go to your hotel and wait for the results. And they made the change where if you are infected, you can stay at the hotel. Well, with the hotel quarantine out of the equation, you have to wait those 2 to 3 hours, as you just said, for the PCR test results. If you're positive, do you go to the Penny's Bay, or do you get isolated in a government facility? Walk us through that.
You know, if a tourist comes to Hong Kong and they get tested PCR positive subsequent to entry, and they end up in Penny Bay, I don't think other tourists will come to Hong Kong. So the idea was that there should be enough isolation hotel to take the place of Penny Bay. So that is what they are working on. Now, currently, there's a pre-board PCR test required. They're going to scrap that. So that means the people landing in Hong Kong finding positive may increase from the previous level. So what they will do is to keep the current regime, which is upon arrival, you take a rapid test and a PCR. If your rapid test is negative, they let you go. But then you go into the hotel of your own choice, because there's no more quarantine hotel, right? And then just about the time you check in the hotel, your PCR result will arrive. It will let you know whether you're safe and you can stay there for the next 7 days. You can go anywhere you want with a mask on and all that, or you have to move to an isolation hotel. All right? So they want to shorten that time to almost like right after you check into the hotel of your choice, and then you'll get your PCR result.
Are there going to be different rules for tourists as opposed to locals with the Leave Home Safe app and the different color-coded and also allowing visitors to go to restaurants, go to bars? If you want to have bankers come to Hong Kong for the banking summit in early November, you want people to fly in for the rugby sevens, and they cannot go to restaurants and cannot go to bars for 7 days of self-monitoring. What's the purpose?
That's it. You asked a series of questions. Okay, first of all, for local Hong Kongers, they would stay home to finish their quarantine if they're tested positive. For tourists and business travelers, international ones, they will have to move to an isolation hotel. So that's one thing. You are absolutely right. The 0+7 is not 0+0. The difference is that during that 7 days, when you go out, you cannot dine in public restaurants, okay? until you're tested several times and you're all clear. That, I think, is a hurdle for international, for tourists. For international commercial travelers, honestly, you can have private arranged dinners with people. You can have working dinners in a private setting. That you can resolve because at least you're out in the open. You can work immediately upon arrival. But you're right. I've been trying to persuade government to change that 7 to maybe, let's say, 2 to 3 days. In other words, upon arrival, they take a test, and then they take a test maybe 2 days later. Once they are both negative, they should be allowed to go out and eat and dine and enjoy what Hong Kong is famous for in terms of our wine and cuisine.
Now, Michael, is that possible? Is that going to happen before the banking summit, down to 3 days? You're in conversations with John Lee. You are also, I'm sure, in conversations with Beijing to get their blessing. Could that happen? If they implement these new rules as of the first week of October, could we, by November 1st, get a relaxation of 0 plus 7 down to 0 plus 3?
It depends on the numbers. Government is looking at numbers every week. It depends on the numbers of people tested positive after they would. Okay, so the number of people that are tested negative upon arrival and then subsequently positive, that's the key. All right? If that number is very low, then they can catch everyone upon arrival, all right? Then you go to isolation hotel, and that cannot be changed. But once you're tested negative, and then you stay in your own hotel, and if you test another time, it's still negative. If those numbers remains optimistic, then I think the next step will be cut it down to 0 plus 3. But honestly, before November, I don't know. I doubt it because you need time to gather the statistics. But I still think that for commercial travelers, they can meet with their people in private setting, in offices, all right? They can have working dinners, working meals. I think that's doable. But for tourists,
Michael,
I'm not sure.
What was the main catalyst for this change? Was it the competition from Singapore, other regional centers relaxing, or was it that simply the pragmatists beat the health experts who wanted a more cautious approach? Or was it the hotel operators? I have it on good authority that the hotel operators were sick and tired of this hotel quarantine situation and their reputations being damaged. What was the main reason?
Reasons are many. The top of the list is that our total number of cases are not rising, but dropping. Let me tell you, if our total number of cases are still rising rapidly today, all this is out, okay? So we are banking, we're building all this momentum upon the total number of cases dropping, all right? And that the vaccination rate is really going up every day, plus all the other factors.